Honor is over 160 years old, and it belonged to a man by the name of Sidney Haight. But he didn't just get this medal for being a soldier. He did something that earned him America's highest military award. So who was Sidney Haight, and what did he do to earn the Medal of Honor? In this video, we will cover his complete story of how and what he did to earn this prestigious award from the U.S. military. As many know, the Medal of Honor is the highest military award somebody can receive in the United States military. And over the years, the Medal of Honor has gone through multiple different designs, but the original design looked like this. Unlike the modern Medal of Honor, this version doesn't go around the neck. Instead, it was worn like most other military medals at the time, pinned to the recipient's left side of their jacket. This particular design features an eagle holding early artillery guns with ammunition underneath, along with a basic 5-pointed star. And the woman depicted on the medal is Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom, fending off discord. Finally, at the top, you can see a small red, white, and blue design representing the United States. And this type of Medal of Honor is the type that Sidney Haight would have received. This is known as the 1862 patent. Now let's go into the man who earned the medal, and how he joined the Union Army. Sidney Haight was born in Reading, Michigan on August 21st, 1847. There isn't a lot that we officially know about his early life or his upbringing, but what we do know is that he was the youngest of 5 siblings. Before joining the Union Army, Haight was attending school while living with his family on their farm, which at the time was pretty basic and a common upbringing, but that would soon change. And on February 23rd of 1863, Haight would officially enlist in the Union Army. But there was one problem. He was only 16 years old. When he enlisted, Haight claimed that he was 18. We don't have any recorded evidence telling us exactly why Haight decided to enlist at such a young age, but it is possible that, like many young men at the time, he was drawn to the idea of military service and adventure, but ultimately, we just don't know. What we do know is that after enlisting, Haight became the lowest rank for an enlisted soldier, a private. He would train alongside the 1st Michigan sharpshooters and eventually be sent out into the field with them. And in 1864, his brother James would join the same unit as well. But before Haight could go off to war, he needed to become properly equipped. So what exactly would a 16-year-old Union soldier like Haight have been wearing? Starting from the top, Haight would have worn the 1858 forage cap. His uniform would have consisted of the 1865 field blouse and the 1861 infantry trousers. Around his waist was the 1858 infantry web belt, fitted with the U.S. oval belt plate. Attached to the belt was his cartridge box, which carried ammunition for his rifle, along with his 1855 bayonet and scabbard. He also carried the 1851 haversack, which he would hold personal items and supplies he needed while in the field. And finally, his primary weapon, the 1860 Spencer rifle. With all this equipment, Haight was no longer just a teenager living on his family's farm. He was now a Union soldier. At first, his duties would include basic guard and field duties. But as the war continued into 1864, Haight and the 1st Michigan sharpshooters would find themselves facing a much more serious fighting. And this is where Haight's story really begins. In May of 1864, Haight found himself at Spotsylvania, Virginia, as the Union Army continued its campaign against Robert E. Lee's Northern Army of Virginia. According to information of Haight, his unit, the 1st Michigan Sharpshooters, were part of the 2nd Brigade. The brigade was ordered into action against Confederate lines. The fighting was intense, with the 1st Brigade advancing within roughly 50 yards of Confederate positions, with little to no cover. Their attack forced the Confederates to retreat, allowing Haight's sharpshooters to occupy the abandoned trenches. But they were not finished. The sharpshooters then advanced into the nearby woods in an attempt to pursue the retreating Confederate soldiers. And during this fighting, Haight's own brother, James, was shot by a Confederate soldier. James was carried back towards the rear, where he eventually was treated in a field hospital. His wound ultimately led to his discharge from the army. For Haight, this was more than just another battle. His brother had gone to war alongside him, and now James was gone and going home, while Sidney retained in the army. This would be one of the first major hardships Haight would face during his service, and there was still more fighting ahead. By the summer of 1864, the Union Army had reached Petersburg, Virginia. Petersburg was extremely important to the Confederate Army because it held several major railroads and ran through the city, making it a crucial supply center for the Richmonds and Robert E. Lee's army. But capturing Petersburg would not be easy. After the Union's initial attacks, the army settled into massive networks of trenches surrounding the entire city. The Confederate defenses were heavily fortified, and attacking them could extremely be costly. So the Union came up with a different plan. Instead of simply charging the Confederate defenses, the Union soldiers began digging a tunnel underneath the Confederate positions. The plan was to place explosives underneath the Confederate lines and blow a hole through the defenses, and send Union soldiers through the gap. After weeks of digging, the mine was ready, and on the morning of July 30th, 1864, the Union detonated the explosives. At around 4:45 in the morning, the explosions tore a massive hole in the Confederate defenses, creating what would become known as the crater. The blast, a gap roughly 200 feet wide in the Confederate lines. For a moment, the plan seemed to be working. Union soldiers poured towards the Confederate defenses, but instead of moving around the crater and through the opening, large number of soldiers rushed directly into it. The crater became quickly packed with troops, making it extremely difficult for them to move forward. Confederate forces began reorganizing around the Union attack, and intense artillery and small arms fire made the situation even worse. The attack was beginning to collapse, and somewhere inside the chaos was Corporal Sidney Haight in Company E of the 1st Michigan Sharpshooters. Haight's regiment was one of Michigan's units that fought in the crater that morning, and this is where Haight would make a decision that would eventually earn him the Medal of Honor. But what did he exactly do? As the fighting continued, more Confederate soldiers arrived and eventually retook the position. As the Union forces began to retreat, the 1st Michigan Sharpshooters stayed behind to cover their comrades as they made their way back to Union lines. According to the family account, several men remained behind the retreat, including Private Sidney Haight, Antoine Scott, and Charles Thatcher. One of the men, Sergeant Depoy, an artilleryman, stayed with his guns until he was eventually captured by Confederate forces. Haight and Scott were described as being particularly conspicuous in their bravery. The two men remained at the breastworks, continuing to fire at approaching Confederate forces, while the rest of their comrades escaped. Eventually, the position was almost completely lost, and one by one, the remaining Union soldiers began making their way back to Union lines. And Haight was the last sharpshooter to leave. He had fired his single shot when a Confederate officer approached him and demanded his surrender, but Haight had ran out of ammunition. Instead of surrendering, Haight used his bayonet, and he struck the Confederate officer and immediately continued towards Union lines, leaving his rifle behind. But he still wasn't safe. As Haight ran across the exposed ground, Confederate fire came around him. He lost his cap, and bullets tore through the ends of his jacket. Then another bullet struck the heel of his boot, missing his foot. The damage caused the sole of the boot to flap with every step. He continued running. Finally, Haight reached the Union trenches and collapsed inside, exhausted and out of breath. But he did survive. And according to the accounts, Haight was only 18 years old. His actions during the battle were recognized soon after in July of 1864. The names of Haight and 5 other soldiers were submitted to the 9th Corps headquarters with the recommendations for the Medal of Honor. Haight would also be promoted to corporal, but there was still a long way to go before he actually received the medal sitting in front of us today. Even after the Battle of the Crater, he didn't end there. After fighting at Petersburg, Haight would continue serving with the 1st Michigan Sharpshooters as the Civil War entered its final stages. The regiment would continue fighting around Petersburg and take part in final operations that would eventually lead to the fall of the city and a Confederate retreat. Haight would remain within the Army until the end of the war, but there was something unusual about Haight's Medal of Honor story. Although his actions at Petersburg happened in July of 1864, he wouldn't actually receive his Medal of Honor until 30 years later. On July 31st of 1896, Sidney Haight was officially awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions at Petersburg. By then, the 18-year-old soldier who had stood in the Confederate works was a grown man, and the official citation for his medal was remarkably short. It states that Haight, instead of retreating, remained captured Confederate works despite the danger and continued returning enemy fire until the enemy came close. That's it. Just one sentence. But behind that one sentence is an entire story of a young soldier who had been experienced years of war and fought at Spotsylvania and watched his brother leave the army after being wounded, and eventually found himself among the last men holding the Confederate works at Petersburg. And now, more than after 3 decades, he finally had the Medal of Honor that could recognize him. And this brings us back to the artifact. After Haight's death, his Medal of Honor was passed down to his family to his great-grandson, Ben Haight. Eventually, Ben would give the medal to a bank teller named Jiang Alger, who had been kind to him at a time when he had no family left. The medal was kept inside a jewelry box, and she only discovered it while looking through what was inside. She eventually decided to donate Sidney Haight's medal to our museum, where it remains today. And now we can finally look at the official document to tell us what Haight's medal received. The official citation states, U.S. Civil War, U.S. Army. Sidney Haight. Rank, Corporal. Conflict, Civil War. Unit, Company E, 1st Michigan Sharpshooter. Military branch, U.S. Army. Medal of Honor action date, July 30th, 1864. Medal of Honor action place, Petersburg, Virginia, USA. Citation, instead of retreating, remained in the captured works, regardless of his personal safety and exposed to firing, which he boldly and deliberately returned until the enemy was close upon him. That is the official record. And after everything we just learned about Haight's service, we can finally understand what those few lines actually mean. This is what the medal represents that moment. We hope you liked the video. If you have any questions, comment down below and we'll be sure to answer them. Please like and subscribe to help us, 1, push out more information about the museum, and 2, to help show us that you support it. Our goal is to ensure no veteran is ever left forgotten. If you'd like to come visit us at 2122 O'Day Road, Fort Wayne, Indiana. More information down in the description below. We also have our website that's also linked below. Hope you have a great day, and remember, 2122 O'Day Road, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Hope to see you here.